Yeah, what we have here is construction cost breakdown. So, before you do your construction work, before you indulge into any of those practices, you have to actually do the breakdown of the costing. So, what the material is going to cost you, what the labor is going to cost you, the machineries and the equipment, the cost of either if you're going to borrow some of those things. So how much it will cost to borrow, then the overhead costs, how much that one is going to be, then contractors' profit. So it's a business. So you need to know how much you are also going to profit, at the end of the day. So if you look at the material costs, so you are going to have 50 to 60%, of the whole budget cost. Then the labor cost is 20 to 25%. Then the machinery and equipment is going to cost you 5 to 10% of the cost. Then the overhead cost is going to be 5 to 10%. Then the contractor's benefit is going to be 8 to 15%. And if you still go back to the cost of material, you're going to have your cement, your sand, your aggregate, your reinforcement steel, then the concrete that is after your shuttering. You're going to mix your concrete, then you do you cast your concrete. Then you're going to have your bricks and blocks if you're going to use your hollow blocks, or if you're going to make use of your bricks. Then you're still going to, your steel is still part of the material cost. Then the plumbing, the electrical materials, the tiles, the paint, the walls, the doors, the windows, all those things are part of your material. When you come to your roofing too, you understand, the king post, all the woods, your roofing sheets, they are still part of the material. So it's still in that 50 to 60%. Then when you come to labor, you have your mason, your helpers, your carpenter, your iron benders, which is also the same thing as your bar bender. Then you have your electrician, your plumbers, then you have your painters, then even your tilers too. All these cost for the labor of all these services they are going to render to you, it's still going to be in that 20 to 25% of your labor cost. Then the machineries, you have your concrete mixer, then you have your vibrator, your scaffolding, then the shuttering, which is your formwork. So be it for your steel formwork, be it your wooden formwork. So all the formworks you're going to use is still part of your equipment that you're going to use. Then the overhead cost. So we have the project related expenses. Then site office. Some people make use of containers. So you tend to tidy up the container, make it neat, and you use it as your office. Then some people tend to build the office first, then the transportation, the water and electricity. So all those are still part of the overhead cost. Then transportation is important because when you go to get all these materials, so in a way you're going to use transportation. Some of the materials are close by, then there are some that might not be close by. So all those material costing is still going to be, 5 to 10% in that your overhead cost. Then you now have your contractor's benefit or your profit. So and every contractor must have the normal contractor margin. Then we have the 10%, which is also included for your risk factor. So let me elaborate on that risk factor because sometimes during the construction of any project you may have unimaginary or unforeseen circumstances that tend to avail itself. So and in a way it's going to take out of your profit. So but if you actually make provision for that 10% for the risk factor, so that 10% will be able to take care of the risk factor. If maybe you have your scaffolding collapsing, so you can actually get new scaffolds, or maybe your formwork tend to burst during construction, so you can just get a new formwork and the new get a carpenter to just put the formwork together. So all these things are what are construction cost breakdown. So it helps you to understand the construction procedure, and also manage your materials. Helps you to manage your material, it helps you to manage your labor, it helps you to manage your machineries and equipment. Know the type of machineries you're going to use at this phase, know the kind of machineries and the formwork you're going to require for this phase. Also help you to know the kind of professionals you're going to use, on each of the area in your construction process. So it is very, very important you have this knowledge, so that when you are indulging into any construction, be it road, be it building, be it drainages, be it culverts, bridges, or whatsoever, this type of planning and costing is very, very essential, because it helps you to acquaint yourself with the knowledge of what you're constructing, and the profit you tend to gain from it, the overhead cost, then the list of machineries that you're going to involve in the construction process, then the labor and the manpower that you're going to need along the way, then the material costing. So these are the things to look out for. Thank you.